Well, good day and welcome to the show. I'm Maggie Linton. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. The good buzz from the weekend was the play of Philly, Pennsylvania, Monet Davis, still unbeaten at the Little League World Series. She pitched her team to victory on Saturday and had an RBI on Sunday. She's very focused and articulate. Check her out on ESPN.com, and don't forget to continue to pray for peace, love, and understanding in our lives and around the world through Labor Day. They could continue to use it in Ferguson, Missouri. Later this hour, to be better prepared for disaster with disaster expert and author Anthony Kovic, but we begin with a discussion about depression. As most people know, award-winning actor and comedian Robin Williams lost his battle with the disease last week. But there are millions of others who also suffer every day. Motivational speaker and author Stacey Young has faced many of those same demons, but has come out on the other end to share his journey and hope for others. His latest book is Choosing to Take a Stand, Changed Me, My Life, and My Destiny. Welcome, Stacey.
Good morning, Maggie.
Well, it's always good to have you back.
Yeah, I always love being here.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
You were pretty open out there on Facebook. Tell our listeners who have not visited your Facebook page about what's going on with you.
And actually we'll back up just a little bit because when I first came to your show, we were talking about my book, It's the Crazy World, Learn From It. And we were talking about what I was going through, and we just sort of barely touched on the topic. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot more that was going on behind that. So this past week on Facebook, right after we found out about Robin Williams' death, someone had posted something that said, "Why would somebody give up on life?" And it was just such a flip comment that I needed to sort of jump in. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I had written this book and was about to release it, but I wasn't ready to necessarily have a conversation with anyone about it, or I wasn't sure how I could tell folks that this is sort of my battle also. But when I saw this comment, I sort of softly disclosed that, individuals like me are experiencing things similar to what Robin Williams might have been going through with depression and ultimately his suicide. And then once I did the soft disclosure, and then I said, you know what, I'm getting ready to release my book anyway. And sometimes God just works in ways you just don't understand.
Yeah.
You happened to call me the next morning, and we weren't even, planning any of this.
No.
And you called me around 9 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, are you available to come on the show tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure," but it didn't work out for tomorrow. But after you did that, it was my moment of realization that I needed to let others know. So I said, I'm going to rip off the Band-Aid, because two of the main issues that were a challenge to my recovery was, one was I carried the load alone. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. So back in March, when I had my particular issue, I shared it with my family for the first time, and that's been a great support system for me since then. And then after that, this past week, after I publicly shared it with my Facebook family and friends, I ripped off that Band-Aid. I woke up the next morning feeling the best that I had in a long time, because I released two critical, unnecessary burdens that I was carrying. You don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. And that's what happens so often. People who are suffering from depression think that they have to carry the journey alone because they don't want to pull other people in. But what happens is, by at least exposing yourself to the rest of the world, you are actually going to help yourself, because that means you are seeking help from others. And it so often begins with family and friends. They're the ones that are closest to you that can help.
Definitely. And, for me, my battle with the depression and trying to recover from it started really about 2.5 years ago. So I had a situation at work where I was working with a workplace bullying. I had a senior executive that was just demeaning me, insulting me, and just saying disparaging remarks to me all the time. And I said, you know what, life's too short for this. And then I decided to leave that employment. But I didn't think that it would create any challenges for me to try to find more gainful employment after that, because I stood up for what I believed in. And then prior to that, I had worked for a couple of companies. I worked for a government agency where I basically sat at my desk for 7.5 hours a day and didn't do any work, getting paid a large salary. And I said, I can't do this. And then another time I was asked to change the results of an audit result. And I said, I can't do this. And it's just who I am. And so with that, I
Started thinking it was all your fault.
Exactly. And it's like,
become
what's
the victim.
going on? What's going on? And then I basically, at that point, realized after I left that employment due to a hostile work environment, I started writing because I realized that I was depressed. And then that's when I started writing all of these books. And really all the books that I've written over the past 2 years are related to all the challenges that I've faced, but they're solution oriented to help others.
Yeah. All right, folks. There may be someone out there that's suffering much like Tracy had, but the number, if you want to join us in the discussion, is 866-801-8255. Once again, 866-801-8255. What did I call you?
Tracy.
Oh, it's Stacy, and I ought to know that. It's Stacy Young, and author, motivational speaker, and his books, It's a Crazy World, Learn From It, Part 1 through 4, and you've got your new one out, which is Choosing to Take a Stand, Changed Me, My Life, and My Destiny. So often, people don't know where to begin to ask for help. You mentioned family and friends, but there's also the professional help that's out there that, again, people are afraid to ask for.
Yeah, definitely. I think that professional options are good as well, because there are experts that can help individuals to work through things if they don't have anybody else as a support system. And, sometimes there's medicine that's available for those that need it as well. For me, I chose not to, but that's just my personal choice, because what I tried to rely on, because I think there's other options, writing and telling my story, because it allows me to release it. Also, in addition to that is prayer. And, I did that because I'm very big in my faith. And that's something that I've had challenges with over the last couple of years. But as I've gone through these challenges, for me, I went closer to God versus going further away from him, because I could have easily started drinking and drugs and any other things.
Which so many people do turn to.
Right, to have a bad outlet. But I chose not to do that.
Well, when you mention drugs, so often if you go to to seek a doctor, the first thing they tell you is about the drugs that can help you. And all they are is a Band-Aid. They're not a cure.
Exactly. And I believe that's some of the challenges. The first thing that we do is we try to throw medicine at the what we believe to be the issue, versus trying to figure out what's going on by having a conversation, and then trying to really dig into the things that someone might be going through. And even if they can't develop that relationship with that particular doctor, maybe they need to find another one. Maybe they need to try to talk to a family and friends. But I think the bigger issue is on those that are from those that are in your life, that notice that all of a sudden maybe your attitude is a little different, you're dressing a little bit different, you're not as reliable as you were before, you're starting to notice all these changes. Is to not be afraid to ask a question, because that moment of hesitation might lead to someone else committing suicide. And a lot of times we know something's wrong, we just don't ask the question.
Yeah. And even within a person's life, evaluating what's wrong with you, taking the time to listen to you, is something that many people spend their lives running away from.
Definitely. And so that was one of the things that really helped me, because as I was going through my journey, I actually wrote a quote and loosely paraphrased is, change who you are by first determining who or what you want to be. And so that was a critical part of my recovery, is I needed to understand who I am and who I wanted to be in order to move forward to achieve my maximum potential. So through this journey, because I didn't just stay stagnated where I was and just said, oh, woe is me, I kept moving forward, even though I wasn't having great success anywhere else. And I decided to just keep moving forward. So I started writing books. I started creating videos. So all these things that I was doing to resolve my own challenges, they were actually helping others, and others were reaching out to me as well.
Right. And you can find out more about his journey at his website, which is slyoung.com. Once again, it is slyoung.com. And I'm talking with motivational speaker and author Stacy Young. His latest book is Choosing to Take a Stand, Changed Me, My Life, and My Destiny. But you have a number of other books, and you're actually opening them up for the listeners of the Maggie Linton Show.
Yeah, so courtesy of the Maggie Linton Show today, I am going to make my books available. So we can make sure that we post a link on your Facebook page so that folks can have it after the show. But it's www.slyoung.com and /Maggie Linton Show 081814 0814.html. So what I've decided to do...
0818.
Let me give it one more time. So
Okay.
www.slyoung.com/Maggie Linton Show, 081814 today's date, .html. And on this website, I'm limiting it to approximately 200 downloads of my ebooks. But what I'm giving the viewers are my 4 books in the It's a Crazy World, Learn From It series that I wrote as I was going through some of my darker days during my depression, as I was trying to make sense out of all the things that had happened to me. So those 4 books are going to be available. There's another book that I recently published in May of this year. It's more of a mini ebook that's about belief, because it's sort of interesting on my journey here. Is that in February of this year, I was asked to speak at a healthy living series in Arlington, Virginia, and they asked me what did I want to speak about, and I said belief, and I don't know where that came from. And it's interesting that at the time that I did the presentation and was preparing for it, or actually the day that I delivered it, I was 1 week and 1 day after I almost committed suicide. And so I was in there giving this presentation. So inside of this belief manual, it gets a lot of information about belief and self-talks and trying to figure out what you should be doing. But it also has a link to my presentation so that you can watch and see that as well. And then the last book would be the Choosing to Take a Stand, Change Me, My Life, and My Destiny. That's going to be available tomorrow. So that one's not available today, but that one will be available tomorrow. So if you come back to visit my website. All
right. That's a good reason to come back.
Yes, definitely.
Once again, our number is 866-801-8255. If you're a parent out there, if you're a spouse, if you're a friend who's noticed some changes in a friend, and the friend has a tendency to wall themselves off, because withdrawal is one of the really serious but also a bright light factor that so many people with depression deal with.
Yeah, definitely. And that was some of the things that have happened with me as well, because I stopped doing a lot of the activities that I was doing. I became more of an individual that wasn't participating in a lot of activities and closing off the walls. And that actually made the situation a lot worse versus making it better. And what I should have been doing is getting more engaged and keeping myself active. I was keeping myself active with writing, but I wasn't keeping myself active with my support system that could have helped me work through it a little bit quicker.
Yeah. When you're, I know getting on your knees helps. Some kind of belief. And even if you're not finding it with friends and family, then sometimes going to a clergy, say you may not have as much medical support as you need, but find someone to talk with.
Yeah, I mean, for me, getting through this battle was a struggle with my faith. Because all these things were happening to me. I tried to live a good life, do the right thing, and then all these negative things were happening to me. So it was very easy for me to turn away from my faith and say, God, why are you doing this to me? But I tried to maintain my faith, which I actually have, and I actually became closer to God, and my faith is a lot stronger than it's ever been. And one of the things I was always hesitant to do in my writing was to write about God. So in the It's a Crazy World, Learn From It series, folks have told me they see the spirituality and the religion in it, but I purposely avoided the word God because sometimes that turns folks off. But in this book, Choosing to Take a Stand, I decided to talk about my experiences, and I'm very raw in the details of what happened, including the day that I was about to commit suicide, and then my recovery from it.
What stopped you?
Well, it was.
Or was it a combination of things?
It was a little bit of a combination of things, because it was weird, because it wasn't in me. I wasn't thinking about suicide. I woke up that morning, and it was there. It was in the room with me. And I was just sitting there, and I was in a trance. I didn't get out of bed. The TV was on. I was just looking at the TV, and I was just in a trance. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to commit suicide. And I'm not going to describe the way I was going to do it, but I had thought about it. And I picked up the phone, and wow.
It's okay. Take your time.
Wow. So
talking about it is one thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
really releasing it.
Yeah. So, this is the first time I've discussed it publicly. So give me just a second. So anyway, I picked up the phone to call my brother because I wanted to make sure that my mom was taken care of, because I'm my mom's primary caregiver. So that was the first step that prevented me from committing suicide, because I had something else more important to care
to
about. To live for. But I also wanted to make sure that in the event that I committed suicide, that, which I was planning on doing at that moment, that my mother was taken care of. Because regardless of what happened to me, I needed to make sure that she was going to be okay. And then during that conversation, my brother, because I was trying to be strong and just generally speaking about it, and then I started to break down, and then I hung up the phone. And then my brother started calling back, and I hung up. I wouldn't answer. He kept calling back. I wouldn't answer. And then I waited maybe like 5 minutes, and then I listened to his messages. And then he said, "I need you to call me back right now. I'm concerned." So I called him back, and this is when the cold water first was splashed on me. He said two things. One, he said, "Have you called your sister? Our sister?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, I haven't spoken to her." And he said, "You need to call her." And then the second thing he said, "You need to use your own books to help yourself." And I was like, wow.
He turned the page on you, didn't he?
That was like cold water being thrown on me. And at that moment, I still was in my fog, and I still wanted to commit suicide. But an hour later, I started to feel better. An hour later, because one of the other things that he reminded me of, and I talk about this also in my videos, that life is about cumulative moments. Mm-hmm. So I was having a moment, and I needed to get past that moment to see the potential. And the amazing thing that happened is a couple of hours into it, I got up. I got up out of bed, and that day I actually, because I have a nonprofit, Saving Our Communities at Risk through Educational Services, which I actually volunteer to teach inmates about life, business, and soft skills. Well, that day I needed to go teach them. And I said, I need to get up, and I need to go and do something positive. So having something positive to do helped me to move forward. And it's just coincidental. The next day I had to give a presentation that folks were paying to hear me speak at a dinner meeting. And I said, well, I need to go give them the best me possible, because they don't want to see the depressed me. Mm-hmm. So I've got to do it. So each step I took allowed me to get further. But when I gave that presentation a week and a day after about belief, the person that was videotaping it for me said, there was something different. And I said, I know, I felt it too. There was something different about it. But what I didn't realize at that moment when I was giving that presentation, even though I was standing in front of a crowd, I was actually talking to myself. I was convincing myself that I needed to have belief that I could make it past this moment and that something better was ahead.
Yeah. All right. We've got a call from Mike in North Carolina. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Yes.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I really appreciate the subject and your guests today. I just wanted to add to the conversation that we really, as a society, need to get the tabooism out of mental illness and depression out. And one of the ways that it has helped me and talking about it with others is looking at it like a physical ailment. Everybody has had a physical ailment. It's nothing abnormal if you had it. Most of the time, people can sympathize with you when you have a physical ailment because there's something they can see. And just equate that to a mental illness. There's nothing more different. Everyone has had a mental illness, whether it's light depression or very acute, and there's nothing abnormal about that. If we can get sick physically, why is it not reasonable we can get sick mentally? And when we come to that point, then we're able to talk about it, just like the guest today. And, I have a similar experience as he did, and I'm sure we're not unique in that.
Very true. Very good. Stacy?
Yeah, I really love what you said, because we need to start treating this as a medical issue and not...
It is a medical issue, yeah.
But treating it as a medical issue versus when someone says, I have some mental health challenges, what's the first thing that you normally hear? You're crazy. And it has nothing to do with being crazy. It has to do with having a challenge, like you would have any other challenge in the body. But the other thing that I like that you said was that there's a spectrum of depression. So you could be on the light side, or you can be on the really heavy side, which leads to individuals to commit suicide. So we have to understand that there is a spectrum of depression. And then also we have to, as you said as well, we have to remove the stigma about talking about this. And this is why I wrote my book. This is why I'm here talking about it, because I never wanted to talk about this publicly. But it's time that we do. And it's time that we start having honest conversations with each other and helping each other to move past these things instead of pointing fingers at someone and saying, you've got something really wrong with you, instead of saying, you've got a medical issue that needs attention, and we're going to help you get the solutions that you need.
Right.
I agree. You know, one thing I find out is when I broker the subject with others, you'd be amazed. I'm sure, Mr. Young, you know, when people hear you, they are capitalized. Because why? They have a similar story. Either it's them or a family member. And one other thing that I've learned is for myself, to really learn to love myself. When I was able to love myself, I was able to deal with, and the love is, and I heard you guys talking about spiritual matters, it's agape, unconditionally. And when I unconditionally love myself, then I was able to love my wife and my neighbors. And it doesn't matter how, when the depression comes, I found out if I just don't let it stay long, it doesn't take that longer for me to get up. And that's all I wanted to share.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for sharing, because you've definitely added to the discussion today. Stacy?
Yeah, again, agreeing with you. It's moment to moment. And that's what my brother reminded me when I was in that moment. He's like, Stacy, this is a moment. You can get through this moment. It will be better one moment from now. Just believe that it is. And so that also helped to drive me forward. But here's the thing that was interesting. Once I made the very public disclosure, because I didn't just say a couple of lines, I went very public on Facebook and said, you know what, it's never a good way to disclose bad news, but I've been suffering for 2.5 years. I've been through my own personal hell, and I went in detail. But the amazing thing that happened is that I got a lot of likes over on my post, which I wasn't looking for that, but I got a lot of likes on my post. A lot of folks commented, and a lot of folks said, wow, I didn't know. I'm surprised because from an outward appearance, I was allowing folks to see what I wanted them to see.
You were hiding in misery.
Exactly.
With a
smile.
face.
With a smile.
Yeah.
Everybody thought everything was perfect. You know, I'm writing books. I'm out here doing speaking engagements. But nobody knew of the troubles that I was having on the inside, because I gave you what you needed to see and what I thought that you needed. But here's the incredible thing is one post in particular, actually it was a private Facebook message, came from one of my former students. And that was the one that got me the most, because after I put the information out there, this particular student, she was in my class probably about 2 years ago. And in my class, we talk about vulnerabilities. And after one of the class, she had disclosed to me that one of her relatives had committed suicide and her husband had committed suicide. And so she wrote me this note and said, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your class, you know, a couple of years ago, and you don't realize the impact that you're having on folks' life, because when you share all the challenges that you've been through, that it actually resonates with so many of your students. And then she wrote a bunch of other things. And then she goes, let me just let you know that you, my friend, will be missed, and you have so much more to offer to this world. And she didn't have to stop and write that note, nor did any of the others. But that's the thing that we sometimes forget when we're in the middle of our personal storms, is that others do care about us, and they care about our well-being. And if we give them the opportunity to demonstrate that they love us and they can support us, a lot of them will step up.
Yeah. And if you also allow them in. Once again, we're talking with motivational speaker and author Stacy Young. His book, his latest is Choosing to Take a Stand, Changed Me, My Life, and My Destiny. But he's offering that book plus others. It's a Crazy World. Parts 1 through 4 are also available at his website, which is slyoung.com. And then it's a real long one, but it's MLSZOZ.
Let me give it to you.
Thank
so,
you.
slyoung.com/Maggie Linton Show 081814.html.
All right, 08
1814 HTML. Next time I should have done Maggie.
Yeah, well, that's
you know
okay.
what? Oh, well.
But they're free. You're offering
Exactly.
the download. So anybody out there, of course, we'll have it on our website. I mean, on our Facebook page for you to share that link. But that's the thing that you want to do. If you have anybody in your family, then even downloading it for them is something very positive. And it also is good for the person who may be supporting you too. They may need it because they may not realize how important it is for that support. Also, right?
Yeah.
Because saying the right things, being there as a support is so important.
Yeah. I mean, so, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, just go ahead and download the books. And the other thing that I'll point out is because some folks will click on the link and they'll say, oh, it's on Amazon Kindle. I can't download it. You don't need to have a Kindle in order to download my books. There's an app for it. Mm-hmm. So you can get the app on your phone or you can get an app on your computer, and then you can download my books. So you do not need to have a Kindle device in order to download my books. So go out there and download them. Again, the first 4 books in the It's a Crazy World, Learn From It series are available today. And then Choosing to Take a Stand, Change Me, My Life, and My Destiny will be available tomorrow until midnight.
And of course, you're also available for a motivational speaker. And folks, the man's walked this journey and is excellent speaker. And as you can hear, definitely knows how to help people along the way. Stacey, it's wonderful seeing you again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very timely. And, we'll have you back on.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, folks, go to his website, Stacey Young. And it's slyoung.com. Check him out on Facebook, too. Really open there about what's been going on in his life. Very positive also under Stacey, and that's Stacey Young. Once again, Stacey Young. Thank you so much. Good seeing you again.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks for having me.
Always. Coming up, disaster preparation. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM Urban View. We'll be right back.